Good morning, my friends. Welcome to our New Testament challenge. Today's devotional and thoughts come from the Gospel of Matthew, the 7th chapter. This is the last part of the Sermon on the Mount, chapters 5, 6, and 7. This is Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew. This is his first real extensive teaching opportunity. And we will see at the end of this chapter, the last thing that's said is that and the crowds were amazed at how Jesus taught. And here's the thing, he says, as one who taught with authority, not like their teachers. And here's how that worked. The teachers of that time, the rabbis of that time, were very, very careful about making sure they spoke almost verbatim the words of Scripture, the Old Testament. In other words, there was really in a sense, no spontaneous interpretation there. That they said, as it was said, and as Rabbi such and such said, and as this teacher said, and as the prophet said. And so they would basically quote Scripture. That would be their message. The ones who had authority are the ones who would bring something new to the interpretation of that. And it was very, very, very risky to do that because people were always listening and the word would be heard and it would be passed on, and folks could lose your reputation if you interpreted it a certain way and then someone else, as one of my professors called, another high-powered scholar came along and said that is completely wrong. You could lose your livelihood, and you could lose your reputation. And so to hear Jesus speak and not only quote Scripture, but also expound upon it, just amazed them. People were like, how is he doing this? Why is he doing this? Is he that arrogant? Is he that proud? Is he that authoritative? Does he know that much? And Jesus did. He was confident in who he was and the word that God had given him. And so when it's easy to speak with authority. And Jesus knew. So he talks about, don't judge others. The whole judging thing. And this is interesting. This is one of the most quoted and I think misquoted passages in the New Testament. People says, don't judge others lest you be judged. And here's the thing about it. He says, make sure, if you're going to judge, and so there's that kind of an expectation that judgment will occur. Make sure your sight, he said, take the log out of your own eye so you can see the speck in someone else's eye. Be prepared to be judged when you judge. Kind of use an example. If you are teaching someone math, you better know your math, because if a student comes back and says, well, I think this is the way you're supposed to do this, you need to be prepared to stand up and say, yes, this is. You need to defend your teaching if you're going to teach. If you're going to judge, you need to be prepared to be judged. You need to make sure your life is in order before you start judging others. And now, again, judgment is right. And a lot of people, and this is my own interpretation here. I'm going to take that authority a little bit. Judgment and condemnation oftentimes are pushed together. Judgment is the statement of whether something is right or wrong. Okay? You're going down the wrong way on a one-way street. You've been judged. You're driving 60 in a 50-mile-per-hour zone. You've been judged. Condemnation is paying for it, dealing with the consequences of it. And a lot of people push it all together. And so you're judged and condemned at the same time. Judgment is not necessarily a bad thing. That's what the Old Testament law does. It judges. But it does not condemn. And that and it cannot, deal with the consequences of the judgment. And so that's what Jesus came to do, is to deal with the consequences. That's what the gospel does. It deals with the consequences of when we have been judged and found lacking. So be careful. He said, don't not do it, but be careful when you do it, because it has a lot of power. And later on, he says to the disciples, he says, what you bind on earth, what you judge on earth will be judged, and what you loose will be loosed. What you forgive will be forgiven. And so that authority has been given to us, but it is one of those things that has a lot of power, and we've got to be very, very careful with that. Ask, seek, knock. Ask and it will be given. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door will be opened. I love that. I love that passage. It talks about Jesus is saying, God is accessible to you, and I am accessible to you. We take that for granted, but I think in that time that was probably, people probably said, whoa, hold on, repeat that. Let me hear that again, because before it was only the priest who could intervene on behalf of the people, and so Jesus is saying here, you as an individual, and again think about who was listening, men, women, children. You can approach God. You can ask. You can seek. You can knock. Wow. New and radical stuff. More good stuff. I could go on. But I'm excited about this. I hope it's been helpful for you. And we'll talk to you tomorrow.